not marked as a panelist that I have missed, please chat me directly. Okay, so one of the first fun things. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Josh.
Hello.
Hello.
So we just asked that you test your video real fast. If you're not comfortable keeping it on the whole time until your segment, that's okay too. All right, so I'm gonna launch an icebreaker poll now that we're like coming up on a minute here, just to kind of understand who we have with us and, you know, break the ice. Let me know if no one can see it. Sometimes panelists cannot participate. So if an attendee does not see it, feel free to throw something in the chat and we can help troubleshoot.
We can't do it. Oh.
Yeah, I don't think panelists are allowed.
I
already know you have solar, Chris.
Oh, well.
Ooh, we got some people taking the poll.
But we don't have wind. That's all I can say.
I don't think I can help you there. Not today. Maybe Jason. Jason can help you.
All right. Jason, let's talk. No. Wind? We need wind, Kelly?
We actually have an 80% poll participation rate. Let's try to get it to 100%. All right, so just a heads up for people using the chat, that's a fun feature for attendees to talk to each other. If you're trying to reach the panelist, the host, or the moderator, you will want to use the Q&A function. And that is in the top, if you're on a desktop, it's going to be on your bottom left. And if you're on a mobile device or iPad, it's going to be in your top right. That way we will not lose your question during the Q&A sessions. We have somebody raising a hand. We testing features or somebody has a question? I feel very powerful. I have a button that says lower all hands. That sounds mean. I'm not going to do that.
You've been elevated to a god.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, so the answers to the questions that have been asked so far, we had a, well, actually one of them's only a real question. It says, will the video be recorded and sent to the attendees for viewing later? For those of you who have just logged on, yes, that will happen. You should get a follow-up email this evening. And you should also have the ability to check all of the recordings and videos within the next day or so. We are going to try to get them up on YouTube, on the Envinity YouTube, and then linked and embedded into that website. But you'll have all the resources in a recording posted within 24 hours and the link to do so. Looks like we got Peter from Penns Valley Conservation Association. Welcome. All right, we're going to get started. Are we seeing the PowerPoint presentation or my Zoom? It's not really showing up.
You're showing the presentation, yes, but it's not showing in presentation mode. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. So, welcome. This is our first virtual solar tour. Some of you know that, we haven't really done a webinar before about the state of solar. We're really excited to do so. We have a lot of great organizations here tonight, the public. We're just really excited to get things started. We have some really awesome raffle items to support some local businesses. And we're really excited to have this event, so welcome. There is a poll if you would like to participate that should have gone live. I'll close the poll at the end, so don't feel any pressure to pull that out right away. On the agenda today, we have some event goals. What are we trying to achieve with this event? Sponsors, host intros. You're going to hear a little bit about rooftop solar, about ground mount solar, about net zero homes. Then we're going to take a raffle break because who doesn't like to win stuff? And then we're going to talk about off-grid solar, commercial solar, raffle number 2. Have some Q&A and some panel questions because we know that people have some questions we may not have covered, and we want to make sure that we're getting those out there. And then we're going to cover the state of the union for solar in 2021. What are we going to do to drive it forward, and how you can personally make a difference in our community right now, and how discounts and referrals can work from participating in this event. And then we're going to close it with another big raffle item. So that's pretty exciting. The goals of this event are really to share the state of solar in our region and experience the various types of solar owners that we have living right here in Center County. What is solar doing for them? What did they learn from installing solar? And I did want to cover some general webinar etiquette. We'll be using the Q&A box at the bottom left of the toolbar. If you're on a desktop, and upper right on iPad or tablet or phone. You can submit a question at any time in the Q&A box, but we have designated stopping points where we will read aloud and have a panelist or host answer. And we're going to make a solid effort to answer all your questions. I think we have a reasonable amount of people here where we can totally do that. But if you have any urgent issues, you can use the chat directly to me or to Andy Porter, Jason Grattini, Brian Henderson. I'll read questions from the Q&A window and direct them to either Andy from Envinity or a panelist, depending on the situation. And I see that 2 hands are raised. If you want to throw something in the chat directly to me or put that in the Q&A box, we can definitely get your question answered now. And of course, our biggest sponsor is Sierra Club right now, the Mashana Group. They're dedicated to grassroots environmental organization inspired by and pursuing John Muir's goals to explore, enjoy, and protect the wild places of the earth, and to practice and promote the responsible use of the earth's ecosystem and resources. So I just wanted to throw up a link on how you can learn more about that organization. They're amazing. They have put so much effort towards this event as well and really support solar in our region. I will call out Sierra Club members, just so that you get that recognition you deserve. Welcome, Sue Smith. I see you have a question. We do have video turned off for attendees. So unless you're a panelist, you won't have video capability today, but you can put some stuff in the chat, and then you can also put questions in that Q&A section, and we're going to be sure to make sure your question gets answered. We also have a lot of other sponsors that we want to celebrate. We're going to go into detail about these sponsors towards the end, but do a digital hand raise if you're from one of these organizations, because after reading about all of them as we posted these sponsorships, you guys are amazing and you're doing great things in the area. We're proud to be talking about solar alongside you. Oh, I see 7. There's more than that. So with this, I'm going to pass it over to Andy Porter to introduce our other panelists. Just a quick one. I'm Candace. I work for Envinity. I'm very passionate about solar and glad to be here. Take it away, Andy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is really exciting for me. Thanks to Candace for putting this together. She's done a lot of great work, and the Sierra Club Mashana Group has been incredible to work with as well. And thanks to all of our amazing sponsors and the other folks that participated in this. The first panelist is Sridhar Anandakrishnan, actually a professor of mine from my glory days at Penn State. Took his geology of the national parks class and then went actually into the national parks and learned directly there. he just installed a solar system in his home this past summer. Next person is David Whiteman. Reached out over a year ago and put together a really nice project at his home in Center Hall. Beautiful ground mount out there. Kelly and Chris Forrest, both educators, both very passionate solar champions, and did a lot more than just solar. Started looking at the entire home as a opportunity to reduce energy consumption and then power it with a solar array. Myself, I will be featured as an off-grid solar person. So you hear more from me later on. Josh Helke, an amazing local business owner that practiced what he preaches, put together a really awesome campaign for Solar Sewn, manufacturing high quality gear right here in central Pennsylvania, powering his manufacturing facility with a solar array. Nancy Parks, a friend of mine through the Penns Valley Conservation Association, extremely passionate advocate for environmental justice and air quality. Has a really beautiful historic home in Woodward. Troy Frank works at Kish Bank and really passionate climate activist. Has had solar at his home in the State College area for 2.5 years now. And as you see here, a lot of other really amazing activism. Thanks, Candace. Thanks, everybody.
So with that, we're going to jump into the first session and talk about Rooftop Solar with Sridhar. This is a short video, so we are going to play it in its entirety. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some really great imagery about solar.
So the reason that I went solar is for a couple of reasons. I'm a earth scientist, I'm a geologist, and I'm fully aware of the impacts of human activity on climate and on climate change and the whole system of power generation that we have in this country. The reason I went solar was to have my small piece of impact on trying to reduce carbon emissions. The factors that I used to choose a solar company was I wanted somebody local. I wanted to work with people, ideally, that I'd worked with before. I wanted a company that had a good environmental ethic. They need to not just be in the business of doing solar because it's profitable right now and there's lots of people doing it. They have to have a track record of caring about the environment and engaging with the community in environmental issues. Those are sort of the considerations. Obviously, you know, I shopped around and I got quotes from a couple of different solar vendors, but in the end, balancing all of these things went with the choice that I did. My advice for potential solar buyers is to just go ahead and do it. Now's the right time. You know, everything is lined up correctly. The costs are there. The payback is reasonable. You should obviously shop around. There's a number of places out there. My preference is to go local. There are a lot of these big national companies that you can simply do a search on the web and find them and you can get a quote. I looked at 3 different local vendors and then just compared their offerings. I had them come out and look at the site and walk through the whole process, from sizing the system, hooking it up to the utility, dealing with the financing, and so on. The things that I learned that were unexpected was actually how painless it can be. We were having a garage built at the same time and having the solar installed on the roof of the garage. The process I thought would be a nightmare, doing the construction, having these 2 people talk to each other. COVID came right in the middle of all of this. We were actually supposed to do all the work in March and April, which is right when the state shut down all of this work. And as soon as things started to reopen again, people started coming back, and I really thought that there would be a lot more problems, but it ended up being extraordinarily painless, and that was a huge and welcome surprise. So we have both a ground mount system, which is on these pillars in the field, and then in addition to that, we have an array that goes up on the roof. And the reason we decided to go ahead and do it that way was originally we were thinking of just having a single array, but the size that we wanted, which is something a little bit larger than 11 kilowatts, wouldn't fit on the roof. As it turns out, because we were having a garage built at the same time, some of the costs of the garage actually factor towards the cost of the solar system, and so you would get this tax advantage that one gets to the federal, I think at this point is 27%. Some of that applies to the cost of the garage, or I should say that tax applies to some of the cost of the garage. And if you were to put it on the ground, then you would also get an advantage, but in the end it turned out to be more advantageous to put it on the garage, and it just looks really cool. The reason that we went with putting the solar array on the garage rather than the house is our house is quite tall. It's 2 stories with an attic on top. And so every piece of work would involve cherry pickers and huge ladders and this and that. So our preference was to either just have a ground mount or a ground mount and a garage mount. The garage is a metal roof, so there's no aging issues associated with that the way you would have with shingles or something like that. It is entirely invisible for the most part, and I like it that way. The way to look at this is you're changing the electricity generation system. As you decentralize it, as more and more people are doing this, the incentive for creating large fossil fuel power plants, or the cost benefit for these large fossil fuel power plants will start to get more unfavorable. We are grid connected, so we don't have a battery system. So we're entirely dependent on the health of the grid. So of the electric power generation and of the electric power distribution grid. Plus we don't generate all of our power ourselves. The way that I think this is most advantageous is hopefully during peak power use times in the summer, when everybody has their air conditioning on and all the offices. If there are lots and lots of solar systems out there, they're providing to the grid, and you're less likely to see these rolling blackouts, for example, that we've seen in California over the years and in the Northeast at times. So hopefully by doing that, if there's enough people providing a little bit of add-on power, whether that's enough, whether it comes at the right times when there's peak power demand, is really a roll of the dice, but it certainly doesn't hurt. We live out in the country, and so for us, the challenges were actually quite easy to manage. We have lots and lots of space to put a ground system, to put a roof system. All the big trucks could maneuver in there without any trouble. We had to dig a trench to get the electric line connected up. It was a daunting prospect to start with, but it actually turned out to be quite easy. The only advice I would have is think long and hard early about all the things you would like to have, because you're not going to want to do it a second time. So get it right the first time.
So I just wanted to thank Sridhar for spending time helping us to make that video. I don't see that he was able to join us. I'm just going to double check that he didn't accidentally join us as an attendee. Okay, so does anybody have questions about Rooftop Solar or about that type of project? This is our opportunity to use that Q&A feature. We're going to be going other different types of solar, so this is probably a good time for rooftop specific questions. So just a heads up, if you're putting the questions in the chat, we would like them in the Q&A function just to make sure that we catch them and we can keep record of all the questions that were asked. All right. Doesn't look like we actually have any questions yet, so I'm going to go on to the next topic. And that's with David Whiteman. So David has a ground mount. Oh, do we have a question? All right. So Chuck has a question. Do rooftop systems need to be within reach for snow removal? I am going to pass that question off to Andy. Andy, I believe you're on mute.
Yep, unmuted now. Not necessarily. We don't see a significant loss of production with snow on panels on a roof, especially if it's a pitched roof. Flatter roofs, obviously, a little different as the snow stays on there. If the roof is at ground level, or not at ground level, but if you can reach it from the ground, then it's fine to clear them off. But we don't recommend people climbing up on roofs to try to get a little extra solar production.
Does anybody on the panel have a personal experience with snow removal in their panels?
Yes.
I see Josh. Does Josh want to speak on that first, and then we'll have Chris?
I think that for the most part in the winter, when you have snow, your production is a little bit less. So we found it not to be worth the danger.
Chris, what's your experience been?
Well, we have one we have a steep roof and we have a shallow roof and a low slope roof. And so this last time we had the big 18 inches or 16 inches a couple of weeks ago, the top was covered, and I think we finally just lost all of the snow off this past couple of days. I was hearing the ice fall off of the roof today as I was in my office here, but the steep ones just melted and they fell right off very quickly. And it was a little bit dangerous because it's right over the top of our deck, and it can come down in a catastrophic failure of as it slides off the top. And so got to be careful a little bit depending on where you are, and new experience for us.
Troy had a response that he typed in, which I didn't know was an option. That's awesome. Troy, do you want to kind of read yours aloud, or can people see Troy's question? I think only the panelists can.
Well, so the short version was, when I first put my array in, my thinking was that I wanted to leave like 18 or 20 inches of gap between the edge of my roof and where the array started, so that in theory I would have room to walk and, like blow out my gutters and stuff like that. That turned out to be a bad idea, which I can't easily rectify now, but 18 or 20 inches isn't enough room to safely walk anyway on the edge of the roof. And what ends up happening is snow sheds off the panels and creates an ice dam right at the edge of the roof, because it comes off the panels and like sits right on that last 18 inches of roof, and it stops the rest of it from melting off as fast as it otherwise would. So the way I got around it was I went out and got a roof rake for snow. And, if there's a bad enough snow, I'll go out there with my roof rake and take the worst of it off the top.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Next question. Is there a concern with rooftops and EMF? Anybody on the panel want to take that one?
It's not something that I'm aware of. I know that there is a little bit of frequency that comes off of the inverters. With the roof-mounted arrays that we install now, they have microinverters that are actually up there with the solar modules. So any of the magnetic frequencies from the inverter will be outside of the home.
Thanks, Andy. We have a question from Ellen here. I've been told my rooftop isn't facing in the right direction, but it does get sun all day. Any thoughts? I think that's an Andy question.
I'll take that one as well. Every situation is different. There isn't a perfect orientation for a solar array. South facing gets the best exposure to the sun as it travels through across the sky, but in some situations where there's shading, a east or west roof line. So one of the things that we do is come out and do a site assessment and understand how shading impacts and what the sun path is throughout the year and how much solar access your roof would have, and then apply that to the production models.
Richard has a question. What portion of the tax credit can be allocated to the garage structure? So Sridhar mentioned that he had a garage project that he combined with his solar project, and I'm actually going to field that one to Andy.
So the actual trusses, whatever portion of the structure that's actually supporting the solar array.
Yeah, we also did a new roof on ours, and the same thing, the cost of the roofing and the new roofing was part of the tax incentive as well. But nothing else other than that for us.
I know that there has been direction from the IRS that you can loop in a battery system, not necessarily part of the construction itself, but I've heard, I am not a tax professional, but everything that I'm reading right now says that batteries can be included. Tom has a question, and it looks like we have our panelists typing in answers. So what was the experience of the solar owners from this past month's 15-inch snow? Chris, do you want to take that one first? And then we'll send it to Josh. Chris, you're on mute.
Do it. Yeah, so we lost a few days on our steep roof where we have 15 panels, and on the low slope roof, it was sort of 5 days to a week before we got full power back on those panels, but it all melted off in the end.
Yeah, and you're also not expecting as much energy from the sun during these winter months. So don't get excited because it's winter and the sun is a little bit lower, so you don't get the same payback. It's the summertime and the spring where you're banking your hours. That 1 year, that's it.
We have a question from Robert. What damage can occur to rooftop solar? Are they affected by hail? Would you need an extra rider on your homeowner's insurance policy for this? Does anybody have experience with hail damage? If not, we'll put it to Andy.
So solar modules have a really, really strong glass that's made to withstand even golf ball size hail, and will be covered under the manufacturer's warranty as well.
I would add that when we talked about the insurance for the house and we told them that we were adding solar, they said, once you have it installed, just call us and tell them that it's been added. And then that just becomes part of the policy for the house. And so it wasn't, didn't change our plan or anything at that point.
How is maintenance handled on a steep roof? How often is maintenance required? I'm assuming that's the panel maintenance on a steep roof. Andy?
So the nice thing with solar is that there's no moving parts and there's little to no maintenance required. The one thing that people sometimes do, especially in areas where there's going to be a lot of either debris or pollen or something, dirt, is have them cleaned periodically. But other than that, there's no maintenance required for a solar system.
Jackie has a question. What is the best kind of roof for solar? I will need to replace old shingles on part of my roof. Did anybody do a roof replacement or go through that experience where they want to speak on that, on how you made that decision?
We did, but we have two different roofs. Our more shallow roof is metal, and then our steeper roof was shingles. So I think it might depend also on the pitch of your roof, on what is the best option. But I think the less steep it is, I think that they require the metal roof.
Andy, anything to add?
Solar can be installed on any roof type, whether it's a flat rubber roof, metal with standing seam, or corrugated metal, shingle. So it's really up to the homeowner and what aesthetic they like with their roof.
And last question before we move on, Sunny says it's currently rare to see the sun. Have you all been able to get sufficient solar to power your needs? I haven't heard from Nancy yet. Nancy, do you want to answer that one? Troy?
Well, I mean, I don't usually, it's a pretty rare winter day to cover your full needs. I generally consider it a good day in the winter if I get half to 75% of my average daily usage.
How does that balance out with the rest of your year overall, though?
Oh, I usually come up just a hair short on a yearly basis. I would say the panels probably cover 90 to 95% of my yearly usage. Partly that's because I have an electric car, so that kind of caused a spike in my usage over the course of the year. And unfortunately, I ran out of roof space. I can't put any bigger of an array on to make up for it.
Okay, so we have two more questions that just popped up that I think are really good questions, and then we're going to move on. Karen asks, are you able to sell back excess power to the utility? Josh is currently typing an answer, but Jason, would you like to touch on that one?
Yes. Yes. In Pennsylvania, we have strong net metering laws. So any excess power that you produce gets fed back onto the grid and you are compensated for that.
Loretta asks, are solar panels on a metal roof likely to draw lightning strikes? I haven't heard of that, but is anyone on the panel had an experience with lightning strikes who has a metal roof?
Not yet.
I personally have a metal roof, but not solar panels, and I have never felt it was an increased danger either. Looks like Nancy has a little bit of extra info to share with Loretta. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. We're going to move on to ground mount solar, just for the sake of keeping things moving. We have a lot of mini videos and question and answers to follow. So next is David Whiteman, and at the end of this short video, David is going to be available to answer questions about ground mount solar.
The reason I went solar because it's the right thing to do for the environment. And there was an opportunity a year ago to take advantage of a tax credit. And so a year ago, I had some people call me who were interested in solar, and I'm in the financial planning business. And I was kind of taken back that two people would call me in the same day about wanting solar. And so I started looking into it and found out that the 30% tax credit was going to go away at the end of 2019. And that was an opportunity that was too good to pass. And so I called Envinity to see what it would take to get a solar system put in. And the reason I chose Envinity was the fact that my neighbors used them as well with their projects at their homes. The reason I went with the ground mount is that I have 21 acres of ground and I have a broken roof line in our house, and I think it would have been much more difficult to put the panels on the roof. And not only that, I wanted a much larger system. I'm thinking down the road that I would love to have an electric car. I think electric cars are the future, and so not only would I be able to create a system whereby I could have 100% of my electric needs provided by solar, but in the future I wanted a system that had the capacity that I could use solar to charge my car, if you will, that it would produce enough energy to do that. So I think a ground-based system gave me a much bigger footprint or area where I could get the panels needed to do this particular job. It's interesting how this thing fits in on our property. Initially, where we were looking to place it, when they were come out to originally set it up, we were looking off our porch, and our porch looks down in across our meadow and into the woods. And when we were looking the way it was set up, we would be looking directly into the backside of the solar panels. We had to basically stop and rethink the whole project. And so essentially what we did is we decided to put it down over a bank and had some people cut in the hillside to make it level. And we placed the array down below this bank. And now when you look down over the meadow and in the woods, you barely even know it's there. The other interesting thing about it is as you drive up our property, it's tucked in such a way that you don't even notice that it's there. Unless you are off at a distance looking at our property, you don't even know it's there. The other interesting thing about it too, when the installers came in, and when they positioned it, they said it was perfectly positioned to get the maximum benefit from the sun to get the most electricity out of the system. That was a plus. My system has been doing far better than I thought it would. Basically, when I get my electric bill, the only thing I'm being charged is the basic bill, $7 a month, because I'm producing more than I'm using. So that's a plus. And then the other thing I get are these credits. We sell these credits back to an organization, and so it's averaging over $50 a month. So actually I'm ahead of the game right now in terms of the cost. When I put the system in, I really didn't pay much attention, nor did I really care what my payback period was going to be on this. Again, I did it because it was the right thing to do from an environmental standpoint. I want to reduce my footprint, my greenhouse footprint. And so the fact that it is producing far better than I thought it would, and then the fact that I get these credits is a bonus. Our system is not really close to our house. I mean, that's one of the reasons it gives the aesthetics that you can't see it. But the other thing that you have with a project like this is you got to get wire or your electricity up to a meter that connects to the house. And so there was some extra cost involved in getting the system in place where you had to dig a trench and run wires and stuff up to the house. Might have been a little extra added cost, but again, it's what I needed to do if I wanted the aesthetics and the benefits of the solar system. If you're on the fence, don't be. I think one, the sooner you do it, you're putting less greenhouse gases in the air, and number two, you know, who knows how long financial incentives will be around. It's interesting, again, you know, when people drive up to the property, they don't know it's there, but I also like to show people the system. I kind of brag about it in a way. I'm kind of happy that I have it, but the other thing about it is the size. And so I take people down and I show them the system, look how many panels we have across and everything, and most people are impressed with the fact that they can't see it, and the fact that, you know, I'm getting my electricity now essentially for nothing, no cost. The sun's doing all the work. We live in an area in terms of cloud cover is one of the most in the United States. But apparently this year, my first full year of the system being in place, the system has been generating enough electricity to cover my needs. And I think as you average it out through the years, like sunny, in the summer months, you have more sunny days, in the winter months, more overcast days. I tend to think so far things have averaged out that it's a net win in terms of my pocketbook. I mean, I'm sure in the winter months, I'll probably have small electric bills, but they're going to be much cheaper than what I used to pay when I didn't have a solar system.
Okay, does anybody have any questions directly for David? I'm going to open up the Q&A box back. So I was a little hasty in moving on earlier. I'm going to let people think about their questions and put them in. Have a question from Richard. What is the average payback and useful longevity of solar panels?
I don't know if I can fully answer that one. I mean, I didn't think I think my payback is going to be something like 15 years. But as I said in the video, it wasn't so much the payback, but more what I felt was the right thing to do from an environmental point, and the financial incentives through the tax credits was another reason to do it.
Andy, do you want to speak to the average project payback and useful longevity of other projects that you've seen?
Certainly. Yeah, there's a number of factors, how much people pay per kilowatt hour of electricity, how good their solar potential is. In the case of a ground mount, they're typically a little more expensive because of building the racking, whereas with a roof, you already have the infrastructure in place. Right now, the cost of solar has come down significantly. So we're seeing anywhere from, for residential projects, 8 to about 15-year payback, but it really depends on everybody's specific situation.
Thank you, Andy. This one is for David. Deb has a question. What kind of maintenance is required under your ground system?
None. It was installed. It's on a flat level area that we cut into the hillside, and really there's no maintenance other than maybe I'll have to mow around it from time to time. But I've actually looking to convert our meadow into a big, huge pollinator wild meadow, and so we only mow that area once a year now. So as far as maintenance, I have none that I know of.
Cheryl has a question. Do you have an energy loss if your system is greater than 100 feet from the home?
That I can't answer, Andy. I don't think I have an energy loss.
Yeah, because it is far away from the home, we needed to use really large wires to reduce any sort of loss of voltage in the system. So we take that into consideration and size the conductors appropriately to minimize losses.
Amy's question, and this is probably a Jason question. Do most townships allow ground installations?
Yeah, here in the center region, most certainly. I believe we have 2 townships, College and Ferguson, that have zoning ordinances tied to ground mounts, establishing a setback and some anti-reflectivity requirements on those modules. But currently, all townships here locally allow ground mounted solar.
Thank you. We have a question from Michael. How long did your solar install take to complete from purchase to install? And in general, how long do roof installs take as well? So Dave, do you want to take the first part of that question? How long did your solar install take to complete from purchase to install?
I'm thinking it's about a month. Like I said, we had a setback when they were looking to initially where we were originally looking to set up the system. They had the things that they attached the panels to part way up, and I stopped them. So they had to uninstall it and move that. And then we had a delay of getting a contractor in to come in and set up the site. But once they got moving, I don't think it took more than 2 weeks to get it done. And then it was also the work of getting a trench dug and those kind of things, but it seemed to go pretty quick. And then we were also running up to the year end, and we were sure that if everything was up and running, we would get our tax credits for the tax year. So I think we were done within 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Andy, in general, how long do roof installs take?
Really depends on the size of the system and how complex it is. If it's a single-story ranch home with a low-sloped roof, it can go really quickly, be installed in a day or two. Sometimes up to a week or two for a residential roof mount system that's more complex. But the whole process from when we have a signed agreement till actually getting the system turned on typically takes several months because of dealing with permitting, applications, inspections, the installation, and then waiting on the utility to give you permission to operate the system.
Last question from Cheryl. How hard is it to add panels to a ground mount system after the fact if your needs should be greater? We can start with David on how you went through that thought process and decided on yours. It sounds like you kind of installed to think ahead, right?
Yes, we looked at our usage and then we added additional panels to account for buying a future electric car. But I would say that it would be easy to add more panels should we need more production, just because of the space that we have.
Andy, any comments there of clients that have done that in the past, added more panels later?
Yeah, we've had plenty of clients that do this. If there is the potential to do that, we like to know ahead of time. So if there is additional energy that's going to be put through those wires, we want to make sure that it can handle that additional capacity in the future. So sometimes if we know that there is going to be a potential for expanding an array, we'll oversize the wire in anticipation for that. So we don't have to do a new trench or replace the wire later on.
Looks like Troy Frank is going to be answering another question, typing directly just to the panelists. To get through the questions appropriately, you can jump in there if you feel passionately about answering a question on the Q&A, as long as we haven't started to answer it already. And I think that will help us get through some of the questions. And it looks like we're good, at least for now. So with that, we're going to move on to Chris and Kelly Forrest. For this video, we're going to be talking about the race to a net zero home and their unique experience. This one's a little bit longer than Dave's, but I think it has some great information, so I'm really excited to share it with everybody.
Hi, I'm Kelly Forrest.
And I'm Chris Forrest.
Why did we go solar? All right, so here we go. We have been thinking about going solar probably since we've been here in Pennsylvania, but again, we are living in central Pennsylvania where there's not a lot of sun, so we kind of let our neighbors go first. And then in 2019, I taught a class at the Greer School, which is an all-girls school, and we were doing a solar energy project. And you teach this, and you're like, this is so good for the school, then why isn't it good for me and for our, our family? So we were thinking more about it then. And then also my sister called and said, hey, we got solar panels, and we're like, okay, now we got to do something. So in probably March or April of 2019, we contacted Envinity to talk about our solar project.
I think we had several motivators. One of them happened to be we wanted to get as close to as much energy production as we could get out of the solar panels in order to get to net zero if we could in terms of our energy usage. And we also had a major issue of trying to renovate our house to make it more efficient. And so being able to combine the projects into a much larger project, as we'll talk about soon, was a big motivating factor. Another major issue was we wanted to, as Kelly said, practice what we preach. And so since we're both educators, I work at Penn State and teach climate science. I know exactly what's going on in terms of how the planet's warming associated with the emissions of greenhouse gases. And so I wanted to make sure that I could also look my students in the face and say, hey, I know what's going on here, and I've decided that I have to make a difference. We did a major renovation of the house in terms of improving the energy efficiency, and we did the roof, we did the windows, we did the siding, we did the panels on the top, adding extra insulation in the attic. We insulated the interior of the attic, and so we wound up having the entire shell of our house now has a whole another layer of insulation on it that it didn't have before. The project basically got it up and running in the probably January of last year, and so we got to experience the winter months as well as the summer months, and the house is just fabulous at the moment in terms of temperatures.
But the summer months, definitely, we cut our energy bill in half. More so, I think over 50% of our energy we gain. But so overall, like all 12 months, we have a 43% difference. So I say, what, 21 megawatt hours? Now we're at 11 megawatt hours. So it's pretty...
Very impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Yeah. So, you know, we bought the solar panels to, you know, to have enough energy for our old, you know, house, you know, our less energy efficient house, and now we have more energy, and so we get to sell it back to the year. And I can't tell you how that's going to be because I haven't done it yet. So I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
We knew we were going to go to Envinity because we had worked with them for our previous projects, and so as a result, it was the reputation was great,
and we wanted more than just solar panels. We know we were going to do more stuff to the house, and I think Envinity is a company that does more than just solar panels.
Right.
So that's an advantage. Yeah.
So there's a lot of good things that happened out of it.
The stars were aligned. We were ready for this. It happened. And now we're just like reaping the benefits. Right? Yeah. Because not only do we have the electric, you know, only do you see it in the electric bill, like we only pay $7.20 every month. You also see it with the SRAP, where you get money back for all the energy you produce. So every month they're like, hey, we still more energy for you. And I'm like, okay. So, and that was a bonus because I knew that they were out there, and so know that we were gonna, you know, that immediately was gonna start, and we were gonna get those credits right away. So that was all happy news, right? Money in your pocket is a good thing. The comfort level in our house increased. I'm gonna say that upstairs where the attic space is, these are other 3 bedrooms, and I noticed in the summertime when I would go up there, we didn't really have to put the air conditioner on right away, that the temperature was actually staying kind of consistent. It wasn't like getting really hot because it's hot outside or really cold. You know, there is a consistency now that it wasn't there before.
Since I'm a meteorologist and a climate scientist, I mean, it's been a big issue for me to be able to talk with people about what we're doing and contributing to the solutions to climate change, in addition to just talking about what the effects are going to be, has been a big shift in the way I talk with my students. It's produced a shift in the science and research that I do, and as a result, you know, I feel more comfortable talking about these things than I would have otherwise, and I think that's been a big shift for me. The structure of the business aspect of what we're doing is something that's really new and necessary to have companies like Envinity, who are going to be out there thinking about not just what the costs are, but what the environmental impact is. And I think having that as a new paradigm for how businesses are thinking through the process is really important. And having companies which are demonstrating how to do it right, and sharing all of this information with the rest of the larger community is allowing us to shift the way people are thinking about it in general. And I think that's another aspect of all of this, which is hard to put your finger on it, exactly how much that's going to make an impact. But by putting that little bit of pressure on this here, and then it's going to start to affect other groups and other people and other consumers who are thinking about what they should do to contribute to the solutions that we're thinking about. How important is it to support local companies that are providing solar, and should we worry about predator companies coming in and just worrying about the bottom line of the profit? I think we have to think about that. It's really important to consider the whole picture and making sure that the companies who
work with are ethically aligned with what your values are is really important as well.
I think too, with predator companies coming in, I mean, you have this conversation with a company, like, what do I get from this? And we talk about the SRACs, and some of these predator companies are coming in and taking that away from you. You're leasing the solar panels, and when you lease, you don't get all the benefits from it. So if you can buy the solar panels yourself, then you get those credits you get to be the owner of those solar panels. And I think that's a big part of it. So you have to just be really careful about what they're offering you before you sign that contract.
So first of all, thanks guys for participating. I love watching that. And I had to cut the part about your electric car, but just so you know, Kelly and Chris also are the recent owners of a Nissan Leaf, and they're loving it. And it's a beautiful blue color, and it really ties in with your solar and being able to charge through your panel with some clean energy. So that's super awesome. We have a question. Please get your questions in the queue quickly. From an anonymous attendee, will this recording be shared with us? We mentioned at the very beginning that we would be sending out a follow-up email with a link, but it would take us 24 hours to get this up on our YouTube and then embedded in that landing page. So by the time you get your coffee tomorrow, or maybe tomorrow at lunch, that will be available on the landing page and the follow-up email. We have a second question from Deb for the forest. The larger portion of the forest installation looks almost horizontal. How would the efficiency of a truly horizontal versus vertical properly angled panel compare?
Chris, you're on mute. It's not perfectly horizontal. It is on a metal structure, which makes the angle, there's a little bit of an angle, but it is getting full sun throughout the day. And I think they get, during the summertime, that gets more production than the other one does. Except when it snows, but that's okay. It doesn't snow in the summertime.
It really depends upon the angle of the sun during the wintertime versus the summertime in terms of what it's getting. The shift in the angle, of course, is about 23 degrees, actually more like 46 degrees from the peak in the summer to the winter. So it clearly makes a difference in the winter. That it's on a shallower angle, but there's just that much less time for the sun to hit the solar panels during the winter. And so that's the other factor that plays into our much lower production during the winter.
We have a question from Peter. Chris, will you share a little bit about Project Drawdown?
Sure. There's a conference going on right now called Project Drawdown that I'm a part of, and so I probably should have been at the mixing event tonight. In addition to this, the Project Drawdown is a group which has been identifying what are solutions that people can implement in their own way, or contribute in different ways as much as they can. There's a book called Project Drawdown. There's a website, drawdown.org, and you can identify sort of 6 different categories as to the ways we can reduce our carbon emissions, either through improving the ability for the planet to absorb the carbon back into the land and the oceans, or by increasing the efficiency of our buildings so that we use less energy, or by replacing, replacing the energy sources of going from fossil fuel-based electricity production to replacing it with renewable energy as another example. So all of these are going to be required for us to get to net zero, where the emissions that we put out are absorbed by the planet in any given year. And so we hope to be there by 2050, according to the plans which are in place and the pathways that we have to get there. So I could give another half-hour talk on this, so I should stop now.
We have a question from Jackie that I might actually put this one to Andy. Is there an optimal angle for a roof mount?
Not necessarily an optimal angle, but around 30 degrees is what's considered the best for maximizing the full year of sun. But we've run models with shifting that slightly in both directions, and it doesn't make a huge difference.
Michael has a question for the forest. How has the introduction of solar panels changed the value of your home and land? And I would also just remind Michael and team that there was a lot of renovations that also were kind of looped into this project, as they mentioned, like insulation. So Kelly and Chris, do you want to speak on that?
It's disappointing right now because I don't think that the value changed that much. We had an assessment down because we kind of refinanced, which is really unfortunate. But I think that the more solar comes into central Pennsylvania, even Pennsylvania, and the benefits are shown, I think it's going to change how they assess the housing. So right now it's, I don't know what they said, Chris, an extra like, I don't know, 5,000. It was very minimal. And we did geothermal like 10, 11 years ago. And we got the same thing when we refinanced. Like they're not looking at this as like an upgrade to your house, even though it's, you know, changing how you're using the energy and stuff like that. So hopefully, you know, I'm thinking about how I can talk to, I don't know what my next step is, but I'm thinking about how do I go to talk to assessors or something like that and say, you know, why not? You know, what can the real estate market do to assess these houses at differently? So yeah, I've been thinking about that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but.
Jason, I know that in the past you've had a really interesting involvement in the state of Pennsylvania on this particular topic. Do you want to comment on what the future may look like?
Yeah, a few years ago, we formed a statewide Green Homes Task Force to look into the issue of how homes are appraised for energy efficiency. And the fact of the matter is in PA, they're not right now. So, you know, solar does not appraise in the state of Pennsylvania. It does in other states. So the value is really determined between the buyer and the seller. And what we've had, you know, we have had several clients install solar at their homes and then sell their homes and then go to us for some guidance on how to recoup some of that value. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory out of Colorado has some guidance on some metrics you can use and how to talk to your realtor about asking for more for your home that has solar on it. Studies do show that homes that have solar on them do tend to sell for more than the asking price, and they tend to go off the market quicker. So they, you know, we're seeing that here locally for sure. And yeah, Kelly, you're right. The more homes that have solar locally and in the state, you know, the Appraisal Institute will not be able to ignore that for much longer. And that, you know, in the next 10 years, I would imagine that would be a part of, you know, standard process.
Josh, I know that with your business, you commented during our interview when we were filming that you changed your banker's mind on this particular topic. Do you want to speak about how introduction of solar panels to sustainable buildings and businesses, what your experience has been?
Yeah, totally. You know, I think that originally we went into it and we asked for that as part of our loan, and they laughed and said, you know, we can't recoup any cost for that. And then I think, and this jumps back to some of the earlier questions about payback, but our site is so perfectly situated that we went from Andy's original like 15-year estimate down to, I think we're at 7 right now. And I think once my banker saw that and saw that our electric bills weren't existent and that we are actually paying that down fast. And we are lucky to be in Phillipsburg where we did build, where, you know, to start it was really cheap. And there's a lot more development pushing out that way. So I think we benefit a little bit because the starting value is low, but I think our banker, their mind has been blown just by the fact that, you know, we're saving money, we're turning a profit off of our system. And, you know, not to speak for a banker, but I think that when you're making money, they're happy. And I think that that definitely changed their mind about hopefully future loans and what they loan to people.
We have a question from Rick. What is the typical life of rooftop solar, and does efficiency decline as the system gets older? I will put that to Andy.
So the warranted life of most solar modules is 25 years with an expected life of 30 to up to 40 years. Every solar panel is a little bit different. So some have a degradation that's faster. And that's one of the big improvements they're making in the technology, is reducing that degradation and getting more kilowatt hours generated with a smaller area. So that is something to, if you're looking at going into solar, making sure that you understand what the warranties are on the solar modules and how much they will produce over their lifetime.
Tom R. made a comment that BBC has reported 4 days ago that there is new PV technology coming using a material called perovskite, which will increase efficiencies to 30 to 40% going into production this year. Any thoughts on buying now versus waiting to get more power with a limited rooftop? I am not familiar with this article, nor have I read it. Has anybody on the Envinity team delved into this topic previously?
I just want to say one thing to Tom. That's sort of what we were doing. We're just waiting and waiting and waiting for the next new technology. You can't wait forever. Do it. Take the freaking plunge. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, and I'll say no. I don't think that you should go if it's a small house size. I think you can and wait a few years and see where perovskite is going. And with a 30 to 40% improvement in efficiency, that's a pretty significant number. And if you're already buying fully renewable electricity from your vendor, there's not a big difference between that. So in terms of the effect on the planet, it's more about the bottom line in terms of investing in when you're going to get your payback associated with the investment in the house.
So I just wanted to pipe in on this one real quick. Like, I'm not a materials scientist or anything, but like, I've read enough on perovskite that I haven't read that particular article, but I would say the BBC was probably reporting with rose-colored glasses on because there are still operational problems with that solar technology, that it's definitely not going to be 30 to 40% efficient. It might be 30 to 40% more efficient than perovskite was like 5 years ago. But so far, it is not a huge jump over current silicon solar. And it still has some issues with longevity. Like, that particular tech tends to break down indirect sunlight quicker than current panels do. And it has problems with moisture and humidity and other things. So I would be pretty skeptical of that big leap happening this year or next year or even in the next 3 years.
There's always really good stuff to watch. Thanks for submitting that question. Rick has our final question before we move to the next section. Any problem adding on to a rooftop system if you want to add on an electric car, for example?
Only if you don't have enough space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's what's limiting us from going anymore. We've basically maxed out what we can do on our house.
We maxed out the south-facing roof. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But in general, you can certainly add on to a roof-mounted solar array in the future. For folks that are maxed out, we are designing and installing solar carports and landscape structures and things like that. So those possibilities are out there to add capacity to your systems.
My button's not working. Oh no. There we go. Guess what? Raffle number 1 is happening. I am going to stop screen share for just one moment so that I can do the random name generator and appropriately pick someone, but we are raffling off a $50 gift card to Elk Creek Cafe. So with that being said, Jason, will you pick a number between 1?
14.
14, okay, wow. Bill Langton, you have won the gift card. If you could reach out to me in Q&A and provide, well, I have your email, but we are going to need an address at one point. So I will follow up with an email and ensure that you get your gift card. Congratulations. All right. Just confirming everybody can see the presentation.
Yeah.
We have 2 more raffles coming up. As you know, since Andy's been answering a lot of our questions, Andy is an Envinity employee, and Andy has a really amazing story, not only on how he ended up with Envinity, but Andy also doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He lives in an off-grid home, and for a lot of people, there are a lot of cool things to learn about that experience. This one is just a tad longer, but I think it has some amazing imagery and really tells people a lot of what it means to actually live off-grid. There's a lot of romantic ideas about it, but I think Andy has the perfect blend of the romantic ideal and the realistic, this is how it is and this is how it impacts our life in this video. So love to share that with everybody.
The reason I went solar was when my wife and I 5 years ago decided to fix up a family cabin. We asked West Penn Power to bring us electric lines, and they told us that it would be $90,000 to get the electric lines from where the grid is located about 3/4 of a mile from this little cabin. So $90,000 was more than our entire budget to build the home. So we looked into off-grid solar and luckily enough found somebody that was selling a used system for only $6,000, which we then procured and seeked out the advice of Asa Myers, Envinity Solar Project Manager, who helped consult us and helped design the system. The old cabin is located in sort of a shady spot. So when Envinity came out to look at the site, they realized that there wasn't good solar potential at the home, but they located a spot in the orchard or above the orchard in a field that had perfect solar access throughout the entire year. And we could orient a ground-mounted solar array to maximize the solar potential of that area. Having off-grid solar is a bit of a challenge, and it impacts our day-to-day life because we need to be mindful of every kilowatt hour that we use. So when we were designing the home, we had that in mind and designed the home to be as energy efficient as possible. We track how many kilowatt hours we're using on a regular basis, turning off any unnecessary appliances and lights throughout the whole day, throughout the whole year. But one of the really nice things about it is that in situations where the grid goes down for other people, we still have power. People don't necessarily know that we're off grid just because they see the solar array. They don't realize that we're not connected to the grid. So it comes as a surprise to people that we're able to live a perfectly normal life out in the middle of the woods with no connection to the grid by harnessing the sun's energy with the solar panels and storing that energy in batteries and then utilizing that battery power at night. The battery system that we got was a used system that had 16 flooded lead acid batteries. So imagine a car battery doubled or tripled in size. So 16 of those in a small little utility room. And what that system gives us the capability is to power our entire home for about 3 days without any sort of charge coming in from the sun. If we were to redo this project, there's a lot of things that we would have changed. We would have, number one, made the home even more energy efficient with additional insulation, with possibly passive solar design. The battery technology today is advancing so quickly that if we were to redo it today, we likely would switch to a more modern battery that would require less maintenance and would give us more storage capacity without taking up so much space in our already small home. For the most part, our system performs really well, especially in the spring, summer, and fall months when we have a lot more sunshine, longer days, and not as much electrical needs. In the wintertime, it is a little more of a challenge because of the shortened days, oftentimes overcast days, and a little more electrical needs. In that situation, we have a backup generator that if the batteries get too low and the sun isn't shining, the generator kicks on automatically and recharges those batteries. In the wintertime, it's about once a week that the generator has to kick on to recharge the batteries. But once again, as I mentioned previously, we're more mindful of our electric usage, and especially in the winter, we turn pretty much everything off and only use the major electrical appliances when the sun is shining and we have that continuous energy. I learned a lot from installing solar by myself with my wife. When I was in college at Penn State University, I took some classes in sustainability and green design, and I learned the theories of installing solar, but had never installed it myself. When I reached out to Asa Myers of Envinity, he offered very enthusiastically to help consult us on how to do it right. Came out, taught my wife and I how to install the system, made sure that we did it right, and then even during his paternity leave, he came out with his young newborn son and wired up our solar panels, wired up our batteries to make sure that we did it properly to meet code safety standards and to make sure that the system was as efficient as possible. For potential solar buyers, I think one of the most important things is to ask a lot of questions, to really take their time to consider all of the options, to understand their electrical usage. And the first thing that people should really do is focus on reducing their energy use. Solar should be the final step of the process, just like with reduce, reuse, recycle. Reducing their energy consumption is the first step. Solar is something that people can take control of their energy consumption and mitigate their greenhouse gas emissions, mitigate their carbon footprint, and really make a positive impact towards mitigating climate change. I'd really encourage people to reach out to local companies and ensure that they're asking a lot of questions and make sure that they're going to work with a company that will be there to support them long after the installation. Make sure that the company is going to install it properly. Yeah, some of the important things that have come out of this for me by installing solar myself and proving that in cloudy central Pennsylvania, you can live off-grid with a solar array has been really important. It's something that I can talk to people about regularly when they say solar doesn't work here. I say, well, I'll prove it to you that it does. It just takes a little bit of will and the right technology is there. So one of the main goals that I'm trying to do by living off-grid solar is proving to people that we can live with less electrical demands and also live in a more harmonious, sustainable way. For the people that can't afford solar right now, I think what they need to realize is, number one, reducing energy consumption. Number two, there are financing options available that they don't have to put any money up front and they can still get a solar system and pay it off over time. With your electric bill, it's as if you have a loan that'll never be paid off. So you're buying dirty electricity and never owning that generation. If you have a loan for your solar system, you'll have monthly payments, but a reduced electric bill. Eventually you'll have your system paid off, and then you'll essentially have free electricity that's also from a clean source. Standard pricing for solar these days is challenging, and it really depends on what somebody's home electrical usage is. So if it's a really large, not very efficient, all-electric home, a solar system for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 may cover that home. But if it's an efficient home that either doesn't use all electric or is really efficient and is all electric, $15,000 to $25,000 would be a good upfront cost. However, there are currently tax incentives, so you can get a tax credit that helps to reduce the amount of cost. The financial incentives currently for people that are investing in solar, number one is the federal income tax credit. So they pay for the full system up front, but when they file their next year's taxes, they get a portion of that system cost back in the form of a federal income tax credit. So they have less tax liability. Another financial incentive is the sale of the solar renewable energy credits. So in Pennsylvania, we have an alternative energy portfolio where electric companies are required to get a certain percentage of their electricity from renewable sources. Solar currently only makes up about 1/2% of that. In order to meet that demand, the electric companies buy credits from businesses and homeowners that are producing solar. So for every 1,000 kilowatt hours that a system produces, the homeowner or business gets one solar renewable energy credit, which gets sold as a sort of as a commodity on the open market. Ideally, Pennsylvania will encourage or legislate that the electric companies get more of their electricity from solar, and the value of those solar renewable energy credits will be higher, like they are in Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, and New Jersey, where credits are selling for upwards of $400 per credit. And the solar renewable energy credits are something separate from the electric savings. So it's almost as if you're double dipping with your savings. You save on your electric bill, and you also get a source of revenue from the sale of your credits. Some of the exciting new developments in solar in the last couple of years have been the technology improving significantly with the efficiency of the solar modules and how much power they're able to produce with a smaller footprint. So the old solar panels used to be huge, weigh a lot, and not produce very much energy. Now the panels are smaller, sleeker, more beautiful, and can produce a lot more energy with a smaller footprint. For people to offset their carbon footprint by going solar, what they're doing is, rather than purchasing their electricity from a fossil fuel burning source such as coal or natural gas that's emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, they're producing their own electricity in their home with a non-carbon emitting source, clean energy from the solar panels. One step even further is homes that are all electric, powered by the sun, but then also have vehicles that are electric. Electric vehicles being charged by the solar panels and the whole home run by solar panels. It's an amazing thing to see people who are able to power their entire home and their vehicle with solar energy. It's feasible, and from what I see, it's the way of the future. One of the new developments in solar in Pennsylvania ideally will be community solar. So people who don't own a home, people who don't have good solar access, will be able to invest into a solar farm or another solar resource that can offset their electric usage with solar that's not necessarily on site where they live. One of the first steps that somebody can take in order to understand what their electrical usage is to have a whole home energy audit. It's pretty much like a doctor's checkup for your home, where it assesses your home, assesses the energy that's being used in the home, and identifies ways that your home can be more energy efficient. There are a lot of social media advertisements that people will probably see offering free solar, no-cost solar, get paid to go solar. Everyone's probably seen them. Most people probably realize that they're a gimmick and haven't fallen for it, but there are people that fall victim to those sort of predatory advertisements offering free solar. So that's why, as I said earlier, I encourage people to really take their time to read the reviews about the company that they're likely going to go solar with, ask a lot of questions, ask their friends who have gone solar how their experience was. Really take their time to think it all through and make sure that they really know what they're getting into, because it is a really big investment, and if done right, it can have a really significant impact and be really beneficial. Now being a new father and thinking about future generations and human impact on the planet and what the future is going to look like, I'm even more motivated to spread the love of solar and encourage as many people as possible to either go solar, reduce their energy consumption, or find ways that we as a human species can reduce our impact on this planet. The biggest reasons to go solar are energy independence, taking control of your energy production, helping to mitigate climate change, reducing the human impact on the planet, and saving money.
So that was a lot of information in one video. I am so proud of Andy. That is like one of the coolest things I've seen him say. So first of all, snaps for Andy. Thank you so much for putting that information out there. We're going to open up the Q&A. Pam's first question, while we're waiting for other questions for Andy to roll in, is if Envinity plans to have the videos available. She came in sort of early, lots of good information. Thank you, Pam. Yes, we will be posting the videos on a landing page, Envinity.com, Go Solar 2021. It will take us a short amount of time, so probably check tomorrow evening, but a follow-up email is going to go out with all the appropriate links so that you can have all of this and it'll live forever on our website. Rob has a question for Andy. How many kilowatts is your system?
So my solar array is a 3 kilowatt array, 12 solar modules, 250 watts each. The limiting factor with off-grid is the battery capacity. So in a day where we get sunshine, the batteries will get charged up with just about an hour to a full sun. So it's really about the battery capacity, and that's where the big technological improvements are happening right now, is more storage with less space and the ability to discharge the batteries further and over a longer period of time.
Loretta says, congratulations on your new baby. I just wanted to call that one out. Thanks, Loretta.
So just so people know, Loretta was my 6th grade teacher and had a really profound impact in my life, and probably why I am here today.
Oh, Loretta, we love you. You also have a lot of general comments of bravo and congratulations, Andy. So just wanted to throw that out there in case you couldn't see it.
I have 13 brothers and sisters. I didn't invite my family here tonight because I knew they'd harass me.
Oh.
Not very sustainable. Overpopulation is a significant issue we have to tackle. So that's why I only have one baby.
Anybody else have questions about off-grid living? Andy has a very unique situation, a lot of really awesome nuances. Any questions in the Q&A? We have a question from Sunny. Andy, can you switch from tied to grid to off-grid?
Certainly, yeah. So with some of the systems that we're currently installing, people do add battery backup. And in that situation, if the grid goes down, they can power their home or a portion of their electrical needs with that battery. It doesn't really make sense to switch to off-grid if you have grid accessibility, because you do have the ability to put that energy back into the grid. So to not rely solely on the grid not rely solely on your batteries for your energy. So we were just, had the challenge of being too far away from the grid that it was cost prohibitive.
We have a question from Jennifer. Andy, do you have a composting toilet? I'm also curious about this.
When we first built the house, we did have a composting toilet, but conveniently, our neighbor is the sewage enforcement officer and informed us that composting toilets are not allowed. So we did have to install a septic system, which after learning some some machine operating skills and plumbing and electrical at Envinity, I was able to install my own septic system. So anybody in the queue that needs a septic system, I'm your guy.
It's amazing. Learning new things about you every day. Jennifer says impressive. Joan has a question. Joan from Sierra Club and a huge contributor to this event. Thank you, Joan. The generator, how does it run? Gasoline, question mark?
The generator is a propane generator. Sort of my guilty feeling. And the reason why we try to keep our energy consumption really low in the wintertime so the generator doesn't have to kick on nearly as much. So we are not net zero. We do still rely somewhat on fossil fuels.
Andy, I have a question because I learned something editing the video. You mentioned, and unfortunately we had to slim things down for this video, how long your batteries last. If you were to get no sunshine, how long can you stay on your batteries before you would not have power?
So an average is about three days, but it's really dependent upon how much we're using in the home. So we are able to reduce that consumption and just live a lot more frugally.
Does that mean cold showers?
Yeah, that could be it, or just no showers.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm notorious in my family for practicing social distancing for lots of years because people didn't want to be around me because I stunk.
You also saw Andy's laundry hanging to dry. The sun is the best clothes dryer. Laura has a question. Andy, do you think off-grid solar could work for a larger family/home?
I think so. So the limiting factor is just how efficient the home is and then how much money you have. There's batteries that you can power whole hospitals and whole villages, but they're expensive. So it really depends on what your energy usage is and how big the bank account is.
Joan really appreciated your social distancing shower joke. Thought we would just add that, as did I. Any final questions before we move on to the next one where we talk with Josh from Organic Climbing about commercial solar? Okay, so we're super excited to talk with Josh. I knew that everybody else in the office was super passionate about organic climbing and this project and that we were able to do it with Josh. I think that he just has so many unique things to say. We did have to cut this one down a little bit, so we are going to ask some of the financial questions live about how he secured financing and how that really came into the big picture. So this one is a little bit shorter.
My name is Josh Helke, and I'm the owner of Organic Climbing, and we're here in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. My interest in sustainability at home revolves around kind of showing other people what can be done. I think that if you can live a certain way and show people that it's possible, you can influence other people's decisions. My main interest is beyond sustainability and kind of proving the naysayers wrong who say it can't be done. I think for Organic Climbing, it was really important because our brand is based upon sustainability on all levels, from recycling all of our cutting scraps into the products to using as little plastic as possible. So when we were building a new building, having it be 100% solar powered was like a no-brainer. I think that the importance of it to us is in showing other businesses that are kind of greenwashing within our industry, the outdoor industry, that you really can do this, you really can be sustainable. You don't just have to make it look sustainable and preach sustainability, you can live it. So it's really cool at the end of every year we do an audit and we look and go through our power bills and kind of in a way add up how much extra we produce. We went into this and we really had a solar zone initiative is what we call it. It's helped us a lot. I think that obviously we don't want to just greenwash stuff, so we are walking the walk and producing. However, I think that when we have customers visit, or a couple times a year we work with Knowles to do like a wilderness first aid course. And it's so cool to have like people come from within the outdoor industry to our factory up in the mountains here in Phillipsburg and just have their mind blown that we really are walking the walk and seeing it. And I might be biased, but I think solar panels look cool. I think they're beautiful, like a design aesthetic. And as a designer for an outdoor products company, I think the straight lines and the linear patterns work really well for our aesthetic. So I think that for us, it's just been awesome. Like we have video after video on the internet. We have a lot of Instagram posts where people come pick up their pads, take a picture, you know, next to solar panels or with the solar panels in the background. And it's really become kind of a talking point, but it's really become, this is the real deal. This isn't just somebody saying it's sustainable. I went and saw it for myself. And I think that when people can see your sustainability for themselves and not just read about it or hear you talking about it, I think the impact of the business is a lot greater. You don't just have to say you recycle or use recycled fabric, but if they come out and you have a pretty sustainable facility, they know you're caring about it. Money talks in that way. One of the biggest questions that we get is, does it work in Pennsylvania? Obviously, we're in a rock climbing company and we're selling worldwide, and it just tickles people that it's coming from rural Pennsylvania. They're like, where are you from? Solar works there? It does. And I mean, like a lot of our clients are in Germany and everything there is running on solar, and it works just as well there as here. And we're very similar geographic locations. I would say that it's blown my mind how well it works. And maybe part of that is having a couple seasons here where we've had less rain. It's surprising. I think that when we calculated from a 60 kilowatt array, what we would, you know, from the averages Pennsylvania gives you when you're doing your calculations, we far exceeded that. And I think that to me, that has been the biggest surprise, plus the biggest question is, does that really work? Yeah, it really works. One tool that I really recommend to people in terms of that is we use the Google Solar Calculator, where you can actually just look at the potential for solar on your site. And obviously we're on an old strip mine, so we don't have the trees, but trees aside, it's the weather. We still are producing, and you know, at the end of the year, not overproducing. What we use as a sewing factory has been super cool, and we're doing it in the middle of Pennsylvania. Another hashtag we use a lot is Pennsylvania gray, because as you can see, it's gray. But you know, today we'd still be making a little. The thing is, like, you're making so much when the weather is good and all summer that, you know, even if you have to use a little off the grid in the summer, your goal and our goal is really to produce enough in the summer to offset what you're using the other times of the year. And that's going to happen no matter where you live. And I think it's really cool that in, you know, an old strip mine in a pretty rural industrial area, all of a sudden we're seeing probably some of the highest concentration of like businesses with solar in central Pennsylvania. It's pretty cool.
So Josh, I love your story. Thank you so much for joining us today. While we're waiting for some of those questions to roll in, tell us about what financing tools you were able to use as a business owner to ensure that your dream of Solar Zone really came to life.
Yeah, totally. So we started out and we actually had our new building financed with SBA and Juniata Valley Bank down in Mifflinburg. And what ended up happening was our banker came to us and said that there was a low interest, 2% loan period from the state of Pennsylvania's, it's PETA, it's called, so it's the Pennsylvania Industrial Development Association. And he basically took our SBA loan and floated it over to them, which ended up saving us a ton of money. And that allowed us to basically finance our our solar array. We have 178, I think 360 watt panel. So it's a 60 and a half kilowatt system. And it allowed us to make that happen. And then I think that increasingly over time, we've been approached by other places in Pennsylvania. One now I'm spacing it because I'm on the spot, but Candace, do you remember the name of the place I gave you, the loan place in Pennsylvania? I'll think about it and put it into the comments.
Yeah, I can watch
the
that.
the progress fund.
The finance cuts will be issued in a follow-up video, second video. I just felt like we had a lot of video going on, so.
Yeah, increasingly there's a lot more options in terms of the financing, and I know one for businesses is the Progress Fund. So if you go to the progressfund.org, they finance some other like outdoor companies in Pennsylvania. I'm in Pittsburgh, and they've also done a significant amount of stuff like solar wise. And I think increasingly, if you go to credit unions and more local banks, they're more and more open to this stuff, especially now that the prison, Penn State, other businesses and larger commercial things are happening. I think the belief is there. So I think if you have a really good bank that has access to your books and sees your utility costs, which are high for any business, they're a lot more open than they were in 2017 when we first approached our bank about getting a loan for solar. Because I actually have been asked if I would like a loan because we're expanding our building, and if we wanted to include more solar in that. So it is happening.
Nice. What does the utility company and finance world need to do better to make solar more attractive for small businesses?
That's a really good question. I think for us, we were an early, I don't want to say an early adopter because obviously there's a lot of other businesses that have done it. In our area, none of the Penelect folks had done a smart meter. So we actually had 4 different meters put in. So for our first little bit, we had a lot of like, hey, we're not producing, we have all this solar, what's going on? So I think first and foremost, I think that the utility companies could do a little bit better job of educating their employees about the kind of sustainable stuff. And I think that that's starting to happen more. But I think for small businesses, one thing that they could do is we do have, I've been hearing $7 for the line fees from some of the residential ones. I think ours is $170 or $80. So I think making those line connection fees a little bit less, because it does, we do not have, like in the summer, we get to the point where we're not paying an electric bill and sometimes have a credit, but at the wholesale price of the sellback, it takes a lot of sellback to clear through, that big of a line charge. So I think that that would be significantly helpful. And I also think that the utilities, they really should have like a direct contact for businesses and residents that have solar setups, because I think there's a lot of billing questions that a lot of their normal people aren't as adept at answering. I mean, I always go to Andy or some of the Envinity folks who are wonderful about helping me, but technically it's not their role to be explaining to me, it's my electric company. So I think that that education would be helpful on their part, so.
We have a question from Rick Williams. How do you tap into that program? I assume he's talking about PETA.
Yeah, you can just, if you Google the PETA, I think that it's PETA.gov. I don't know off the top of my hands, but they have a lot of different revolving loan programs, and they've been wonderful for us. I don't know if it's like this in every zone, but we're in what's a KOZ, so it's a tax exempt industrial zone to create jobs. So we had to take our staff from 16 over the course of a 3-year period and add 6 jobs, which we've done. And that gave us access to that lower interest rate and a tax abatement. So like, I guess one of the things I forgot is with that, we had the access to not paying the sales tax for some of the equipment for the solar and for our building overall. So that was a big savings too. So I do encourage businesses to check those programs out.
I think this question is for Jason from Susan. She said, for possible low-cost systems that may be coming soon, check with UAJA, University Area Joint Authority. They are seeking to do tax credit for solar installations for customers of their sewer system, where UAJA pays the upfront cost and the homeowner has a quarterly charge added to their sewer bill. Jason, do you have any comments on that? Have you seen that start to come up in the community?
Yeah, definitely more to come on that in 2021. I've been a part of that planning process for the better part of a year now. And yeah, hopefully it's a real unique potential program that we can bring here to the center region. And hopefully that'll happen in 2021 here.
Laura Jackson has a question. She's in an electric co-op and the manager tells her when solar projects are added to the co-op, the other members are paying more and subsidizing the solar owners. Does anyone know if this is the case? Anyone on the panel know anything about electric co-ops?
Yeah, so I replied to her in a text. I mean, it's not unique to co-ops. That's an argument that utilities trot out all the time and has been proven pretty much demonstrably false over and over and over again. It ends up being a net benefit to all the other ratepayers due to the big facts of distributed energy generation reduces the need for the utility to do grid upgrades, as well as it tends to reduce their need to buy power from what's called peaker power plants, which are the most expensive power on the grid. So they'll say that that's the reason, but the main reason utilities oppose it is because it cuts into their historical business model.
Thank you, Troy. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian for a couple more panel questions that were submitted ahead of time. Brian, take it away.
Thanks, Candace. So yeah, I wanted to thank everyone again for being here, all the attendees, all the sponsors. The joint effort between Sierra Club and Envinity has been really great, and it's been fun to be a part of this. So thanks everyone for your work. Wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to speak on the panel. Is Nancy Parks still with us?
I do not see that she is.
Okay.
I'm a member of the Sierra Club too, Brian, Chris and I.
Hey,
I saw the first question.
Yeah, good deal. Well, yeah, I think in general, we'd love to hear from the panel about what it means to be a member of something like the Sierra Club. And many of us locally are working with PA, Interpower, Interfaith Power and Light, PVCA, a lot of efforts and a lot of groups, and just want to have a good conversation about what kind of value that brings to your life.
Well, I just started getting involved more with the Sierra Club in terms of volunteering. So I've been part of the BAM Film Festival, which is a fundraiser for the Sierra Club and the State Theater for the past few years. And I'm also a member of Ready for 100, which is the Sierra Club's initiative to go 100% renewable by 2050, which is what Joan is part of, and Doug is part of, who's on the chat, and Nancy, of course, who is also on the chat. So just trying to get out, I mean, this is our educational piece, right? Trying to get out information about solar. And sorry, Troy also is part of the Ready for 100 as well. But just trying to get information and education out to people and trying to get them to look at their lifestyle. I love what Andy was saying about really have to start looking at your use of how do you use energy and how can you change your behaviors and become more sustainable and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so it's been great for me. And that's all I have to say right this second. Troy?
Yeah, I mean, I would reiterate pretty much the same thing. Goal number one is always reduce your energy usage. It's the most cost-effective mitigation you can do. It's typically one of the fastest things you can do, and it'll lead to cheaper solar later on.
Awesome. Does anyone else on the panel have anything to say about what it means to them to be a member or an activist in general?
So I would add that understanding what's going on at the national level in terms of the what are programs which are being considered in Congress, and how does that play out at the national level, and how does that then come down to the Pennsylvania level? So having both the Moshannon group and the national understanding of what's going on at the national level helps us, better navigate what sort of environmental issues should we be thinking about, and trying to understand what the trade-offs are between different solutions to climate change, or to the local area conservation efforts which are going on within the Sierra Club. So those are the things which I get out of it, and I love reading the magazine whenever I can find it around the house.
Great, thanks, Chris.
And I agree with Joan. I mean, Joan's also chiming in, even though she's not one of the panelists. But when you go to Sierra Club meetings, when you're involved with different types of organizations, not just Sierra Club, Ready for 100, and all of the other organizations that are on this call today, is you just get more information, and you become smarter, right? You get to share ideas, and sometimes you're like, wow, I never thought about doing that. So it's a great way to really get involved if you haven't really started to think about how you can get involved and become, like what Chris said too, of talking about national issues and calling senators and going to Harrisburg and all that kind of stuff. Joan does a lot of that. So
I bet it feels very empowering to be able to have an impact.
Yeah, I do a lot through teaching at my school with my girls. So I feel like that's where, like, as an educator, that's where you can do a lot of work. So, and they're all fired up. So it's a good thing.
I just wanted to mention that at the back end, we're probably not going to have time based on the amount of amazing questions that we've had today, but we do have a slide for every organization who sponsored this event. And I think if anyone's interested in becoming more involved in environmental causes, energy efficiency causes, various types of nonprofits that are fighting the same fight that we are, there is a description and a website and a Facebook link of how you can get more involved with those organizations. I want to make sure that when the follow-up email goes out and you get a copy of this presentation, that you're really thinking about next steps where you can get more involved if you'd like to. And if you have that time, there's a lot of virtual events going on. Back to Brian.
Thanks, Candace. All right, I'll throw out another question for the panel here. We'll see how this goes. So thinking in large part, what can we all do to support renewable energy?
Without actually buying it?
I mean, that's an option, but it might not be an option for everybody.
Yeah, but you also have the option as an electric, of who provides your electricity. And that's the first thing that we had done when we got here, is like Green Mountain Energy and all the other energies that only are giving you the solar and the wind, if you can't afford, getting solar at this point. So you can put your, you can change your energy provider. And I know that we talked about this in Ready for 100. We talked about it in Sierra Club, and we have a list of those types of energy providers and stuff like that. So that's one thing that you can do right away. Give up our cars. Yeah, walk a lot.
Yeah, I mean, a large part of the culture in the solar industry is really, connecting solar companies with solar champions, people in the community that want to go out and speak about the merits of solar energy and the benefits of it and the finances of it. And I think that's something that we can all consider too. A presentation like this and a connection like this gives us resources and information that we can go out and share, and tell this story again and again and help people realize. And like Josh said, I mean, half the people that he talks to go, does that even work in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I mean, we're a solar company. We hear that every day. It's still very much a myth in the air. And I think we can all help the industry by sharing facts and information and stories like we have been tonight.
Yeah, Brian, I see a comment here from Chloe that is the other half of the equation on what you can do to support solar, aside from, purchasing directly, purchasing it from the utility. And that's, just an awareness at the legislative level. Like it or not, solar is directly tied to policy, both state and federal. So just being aware of what our legislators are doing, making phone calls, writing letters, meeting with our very accessible local congressmen to show your support for renewable energy, whether that's community solar, like Chloe mentioned there, and we'll chat about that maybe in a few minutes here, or increasing the alternative energy portfolio standard. These are all things that we can do without actually putting panels on our roofs or our backyard.
Great point. Thanks, Jason.
Brian, if it's okay with you, I want to keep us moving and get to the next fun part, the raffle. And because we love Josh and other local businesses so much, we're raffling off a $250 gift card this time. You have a choice of one of those local businesses, and we are going to let Brian choose a number now. 1 through 82.
1 through 82. Okay, I'm going to go.
Can't be an Envinity employee, so if I land on an Envinity employee, I'm going to keep moving. Sorry, guys.
All right. We'll go 57.
We have Loanne Snavely. Loanne, I will be contacting you directly. Congratulations.
That's a good prize. You stuck it out all the way. Way to go.
We had to provide some rewards for sticking towards the end here. Now that we're going to get to some exciting stuff. Jason has the state of solar for 2021. How is Pennsylvania doing? Updates on the tax credit. What's next? More information on community solar. You can see a lovely installation we did recently with one of our solar trailers. And Jason, take it away.
Thanks, Candace. I want to be super sensitive with everybody's time as we're approaching the 9 o'clock hour here. But yeah, I've been with Envinity for a long time now and been doing solar since the mid 2000s. So I just kind of want to run through a few slides here, just update everybody on the call with where we are as a state, and just quickly run through some slides here. So Pennsylvania, we're a solid C player in the country. We're not showing off, and we're not lagging behind. We're right riding the curve of being respectable. Over 24,000 solar installations. We have strong net metering laws here, and there is plenty of growth in the industry. In just the past 24 months of our existence as a company, we've installed over 150 projects totaling over 2.5 megawatts. We've doubled our solar team and have plans to continue to grow our solar team in 2021, as well as expand to a second office location in Western Pennsylvania. And that is largely because of how strong solar is in the state here. At the utility scale level, which is what this map reflects from the PJM grid, you can see right now, we're looking to double our solar capacity as a state. We have projects in the queue here that are very large. Utility scale is one side of the solar spectrum. What we've been discussing tonight is distributed solar, for homeowners, small business owners, smaller arrays. That's really where the focus of our company is. There's growth on both sides of the curve here. When we talk about this map and planned solar expansion at the utility level, I know a lot of these organizations on this call and that have sponsored us are hyper aware of the environmental and conservation issues that are associated with utility scale solar development. So, all of us on this call need to make sure that we are being advocates for responsible growth, responsible land planning, preserving our agricultural lands, our wildlands, our wildlife habitat, and our migration pathways that we have. Go on to the next slide there.
So my gratuitous cat shot, I promise.
Oh, that is a little lewd. It's a lewd cat. The good news at the federal level, if there is good news at the federal level right now, is that the 2020 spending bill that was passed just, geez, it seems like a year ago, but it's probably just like a week and a half ago, included an 2-year extension of the 26% federal tax credit, for both residential and small business owners there. So it was planned to step down again this year, down to 22%, and then gone after that for residential customers. Part of the compromise there in that spending bill was to extend that tax credit. So you can see just some basic solar math on the slide there. Average system size for us in the center region is 7 to 10 kilowatts. Tax credit of $10,000, something like that is typical. Those are all numbers that we provide in financial assessment of projects here. On the commercial side, as Josh knows, you can accelerate solar accelerate the depreciation of solar as an asset, which further enhances your economic return on a solar project. And yeah, just a fun factoid. Since I started quoting solar systems back in 2007 and 8, solar prices then were hovering in the $8 to $10 per watt neighborhood. Now they're down to $2 to $3 per watt for residential customers. So solar energy costs have decreased significantly over the past decade. So I want to throw some shine at a program that was funded in part by the DEP called Finding Pennsylvania's Solar Future Plan. If you don't know about it, when you get these slides sent to you, there's a hyperlink there on the bottom there. It takes you to a comprehensive report that was put together over the course of a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years, and a stakeholder group of over 500 participants to really decide what we need to do as a state to improve the solar industry. Those recommendations are outlined in detail, but some of the highlights that are important to us as a company is increasing the alternative energy portfolio standard solar carve out. Right now, we are at a 0.5% solar requirement in the state. So we're only required, our utilities are only required to generate 0.5% of their energy from solar. The gist of the Finding PA Solar Future Plan is to bump that number up to 8 to 10%. We need to provide easier access to capital for both homeowners and small business owners that are looking to go solar. We need to adopt uniform policies to streamline siting and land use issues while promoting conservation. Expanding virtual net metering in the state. All of our public utilities allow virtual net metering to a 2-mile radius. That can be expanded relatively easy across the state there. We can expand what's called commercial property assessed clean energy across the state. Right now, that is a county by county adoption. Center County is one of the counties that opted into CPACE, and it provides financing for commercial entities to go solar or make their buildings more energy efficient. And of course, we've heard it a couple of times here, enact community solar legislation, which I think we go into on the next slide here. Yeah, so community solar is currently not allowed in Pennsylvania. There are 2 bills, one in the State House and one in the State Senate, HB 531 and SB 705, that would allow community solar in the state of Pennsylvania. There is broad support, both from the general public and a lot of our legislation. It is a bipartisan effort that remains sitting right now. So if there's a time to shake your legislators for an ask, and I know there's a great many things that we should be talking to them about right now, add this to the list. This is certainly something that has the support and would really be a boom to the local solar industry across the state there. Yeah, and this has a benefit to our agriculture community as well, because a lot of agricultural farmers have land that is not ideal for crops. And what we've found is that that land can be used for things like community solar arrays, so they can gain value from that part of the property that they currently did not have value from.
Jason, we have a question coming in regarding that. Joan says, I have a friend whose neighbor has a large field and wanted to get solar panels. They are to rent it out for 25 years, but the company he talked to about doing this said that they would not guarantee to remove the solar panels at the end, and he backed out of the deal because that was not okay with them. Are there people who are setting up commercial solar fields interested in renting property, agricultural property, that would guarantee removal?
I don't know if they would guarantee removal or not. I'm not intimately familiar with all the companies across the state are offering, but there are good witches and bad witches out there. Just because somebody is installing solar doesn't mean they have the landowner's best interest in mind. We are seeing that across the state, where there's a lot of parallels to the way the natural gas industry developed back in the mid 2000s, a little bit of a land grab. So there are many different companies offering many different things, and it is a buyer beware, and have a legal representative if you're looking to lease out your land at any sort of scale.
That's good advice. Thank you, Jason. And one more question from David. Is there any special incentive or financial assistance to school districts for installing solar systems? Are they able to access the federal tax credit?
No. So a lot of school districts tend to go solar through what's called a power purchasing agreement, where there is a third-party buyer in the school, the end user, whether it's a school or another entity, buy that power at a fixed cost per kilowatt hour, potentially with an annual escalation fee and an option to buy that solar array outright after 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the terms of that power purchasing agreement are. I am sure that it's been a while for me that I've looked into programs for schools. I am sure that there are grant programs out there specifically for renewable energy. There used to be a ton back in the day through Energy Harvest, Growing Greener program, things like that popped up way back, but I'm a little out of the loop on that right now.
Last one from Susan. Jason, did those two bills die at the end of the session, so they will have to be reintroduced with new numbers in the next legislative session? Let us know if they get reintroduced or what you think.
Yeah, I believe they have died and they need to be reintroduced. At the end of the Senate or the House session last year was in November. I think that is the way it works. I think they need to be reintroduced. My understanding is that they would be because of the support they have, but we will see.
Okay, so in the essence of being respectful of everybody's time, since we're over that 9 o'clock mark, I'm going to move to raffle 3. And if you want to submit any additional questions after the fact, we would be happy to respond to your emails. You can email solar@envinity.com. Raffle number 3 is the big kahuna. See Andy riding that solar panel wave. Free energy audit. So that is a $500 value. If you've had an energy audit before, you could gift it to a friend who is a good candidate. Because I know I do see a lot of people in our participant list who have gotten energy audits with Brian before. Brian, do you just want to explain what an energy audit is in a couple sentences and explain the benefits and within that?
You bet, and I'll be quick. So in essence, it really underlines a lot of what we've been talking about, especially around conservation first. So getting a home energy audit is a great way to understand how you can rein in the energy use in your home, and in a way that helps you identify the most cost-effective ways to do it. So without hearing it from the window salesman or the furnace guy, you have a third-party independent trained professional come in and take a look at all the different systems in your house and do some energy modeling and utility bill analysis that leads to a report that will show you, what your improvement opportunities are, what each one would cost you, and what each one could potentially save you. So that's the bottom line.
Brian, do you want to pick a number between 1 and 68?
34.
Leslie Pillin, you are the lucky winner of the energy audit. We will email you and get information on where we can mail that certificate, or you can schedule directly with Brian. Congratulations. My energy audit report personally terrified me. So good luck. Because it's an inefficient older home, I should clarify that. So what can you do? So for those of you who aren't familiar with QR codes, we wanted to make it easy for you to take out your smartphone, scan this QR code with just your regular old camera. And that's a great way to jump to our Go Solar 2021 page that has a no pressure solar chat. You can sign up for that. It's a very short contact form. Andy from our team here, or Brian or myself or Jason will give you a call based on your situation and kind of run through what you can do next if you're interested in solar. So that's always an option. The second thing you can do is fill out our survey. Here's the QR code for our survey. It is also in the follow-up email. You're going to notice I'm going through these kind of quickly for the essence of time, but at the end we'll have like a summary sheet with everything, and it will also be in your follow-up email. We want to hear what you want to hear about next. We have been very blessed to get so many environmental organizations together and get everybody who's so interested in solar on one call. What do we do next? Are you interested in CPACE? Are you interested in community solar? There could be anything that you're super interested in that we can do another event. And you can also become a solar champion. So this is the QR code to really download our referral packages and how you can get involved in promoting solar in our area. We do have some special things associated with this event that are benefits to everybody who attended. So here are the shortened links for those 3 things that we just talked about, but also you get a discount code for attending this event. Make sure to write this discount code down. There's some contact information for Envinity right here. So if you're interested in solar and you have a business, we're obviously going to give you a free quote. You get a $1,000 discount for attending today. And if anybody has a business that they know is a good fit for solar and you want to introduce them to us and they end up installing solar, you also get $1,000 in your pocket that you can either donate back to your charitable organization that you're so passionate about, or just keep in your pocket. That's okay too. For homeowners, we're also going to provide a free quote, but also you're going to get 50% off your deposit and a 10-year extended warranty on your panels. Again, if you know a homeowner that's a good fit and you already have solar, or if you just want to spread the word and they end up installing solar, you get $500 for that referral. So we want to make that worth your time because I know everybody's super active in pro solar in this group. So become a solar champion. And then as part of this deck, you're going to see our sponsors. We have a slide on each sponsor, very detailed about what the goals of these organizations are, how they're helping our community, how you can volunteer, what events are coming up. As you can see, our sponsors are really important to us, and please take the time when you download the slides to really learn about them. There's a long list of really amazing organizations that are here today. We want to thank you all for being here.
And Candace, all our supporting organizations have been linked on our social media page, I believe.
Yes, also there as well.
All right.
We will be doing a lot of follow-up posts, sharing some of the most interesting questions and answers, and also still promoting our sponsors and making sure that the information gets out. But I wanted to leave the final slide up for everybody. If you want to write down a link, if you want to write down that discount code or any contact information, or if you have final questions, I'll open up the Q&A real fast. If anybody wants to stay a little bit later and ask us any questions or ask us to flip back to a slide. But if we don't see you, thank you so much for coming. This was a really happy, successful event for us to see 115 people at one point interested in solar. So I just want to thank everybody for sticking with us. This is a long one. Maybe next time we'll do installments and do like 1 or 2 videos and some questions. But I hope this lives forever on the website and in everybody's hearts, so that you can flip back to those questions, reach out if you think of questions in the future, and really get passionate about Pennsylvania solar for 2021.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Candace.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Candace. Great job.
Thank you.
Talking to y'all.
Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, hopefully we see more of each other soon. I'm going to leave this up for just a minute. Yeah, I'm going to awkwardly sit here for a little bit longer in case anybody has any follow-up questions.
I'm watching the participant number drop. We're down to 41.
Oh, that's okay.
36. No, this is good. We'll leave when they leave.
Yeah, that's a good plan. I don't know why I said awkwardly sit here. We'll leave when they leave. So Elaine says, thank you very much, panelists, for sharing your expertise and knowledge, and solar owners for firsthand testimony. So I'm really excited that we had so many people excited about solar on our panel. And again, thank you so much.
Hey, Troy, thanks for being here. You contributed a lot of really helpful insight.
No problem. I'd say a third and maybe a fourth thank you to Joan for being a bulldog on a wire with this.
I've decided between Joan and I, we can conquer the world.
You can. You conquered my inbox, I'll tell you that.